The January 6th hearings have provided a mountain of new evidence about the relentless, all-encompassing plan by Donald Trump and his cronies to overturn the 2020 election. But maybe the biggest revelation so far has been the degree to which the people involved in the scheme all had criminal intent and knew what they were doing was against the law. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. Look, I'm not especially hopeful that the January 6th hearings are going to magically change the minds of any hardcore Trump fans in the Republican Party. I mean, I hope they do, but we've been through a 7-year-long onslaught of Trump scandals, including 2 impeachment, a violent coup, and a sex scandal in which he paid hush money during a presidential campaign to cover up an affair with a porn star and lied about it up until the point where the actual check he personally wrote to make the payment surfaced with his signature on it. And the way you know that's Donald Trump's signature is that he looks like he signed it with a giant Sharpie while he was whitewater rafting. Remember that whole thing? Looking back, now I have to say, I always imagined hush money would be paid in a more covert way than writing and signing a check. That was more like Yale money. I just assumed from movies it would be an envelope full of unmarked bills passed between parked cars down to the docks. I never would have imagined Trump sitting down to balance his checkbook and going through all the hush money payments. All right, let's see, $150 for the cable bill. That's fair. I watch a lot of cable. $300 for groceries. Eat a lot of groceries. Let's see, $130,000 to adult film star to cover up sex scandal. More than fair as well. Mel? Mel, honey, do you have any hush money payments you need me to make? No, because I'm doing the bill, and if you have hush money, I'd love to... Why? Because I don't want to pay late fees. Mel, I don't want to be the only frugal one in this relationship, Mel. None of that really seemed to move the needle with Republicans, so I'm not optimistic the January 6th hearings are going to seriously influence the GOP. But I am hopeful the hearings will influence prosecutors in the Justice Department, because one area where these hearings have been shockingly successful has been establishing criminal intent and a consciousness of guilt among Trump and his gang of pro-coup weirdos as they were planning and orchestrating the coup. Take disgraced former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn, who participated in discussions where, among other things, he pushed Trump to use the military to seize voting machines. Flynn invoked the Fifth Amendment during a series of what you would think would be pretty straightforward questions for any non-fascists.
Do you believe the violence on January 6th was justified morally?
Take the Fifth.
You believe the violence on January 6th was justified legally?
Fifth.
General Flynn, do you believe in the peaceful transition of power in the United States of America?
The Fifth.
You're pleading the Fifth over a hypothetical that has nothing to do with the law? The Fifth Amendment doesn't work like that. It's not Family Feud. It doesn't say you have the right to pass after you buzz in. It protects you from self-incrimination. And look, I'm generally very opposed to drawing conclusions about someone's guilt just because they plead the Fifth. It's a constitutional right when it's in there for a reason. These are just benign hypotheticals. This is like if your spouse said, "How do you feel about monogamy?" And your answer was, "I'm invoking my Fifth Amendment right not to answer any questions about your sister." It's not gonna end the conversation. That's how aware these guys were that they were in legal trouble. They wouldn't even answer questions about whether they believe in the peaceful transfer of power. In fact, at almost every turn, key White House officials made it very clear that they knew they were in significant legal jeopardy. For example, on Tuesday, former Trump White House official Cassidy Hutchinson recounted in a damning comment from Trump's White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, after he found out that Trump wanted to go to the Capitol himself and lead the armed mob in overthrowing the election results.
We understand, Ms. Hutchinson, that you also spoke to Mr. Cipollone on the morning of the 6th as you were about to go to the rally on the Ellipse. And Mr. Cipollone said something to you like, make sure the movement to the Capitol does not happen. Is that correct?
That's correct. I saw Mr. Cipollone right before I walked out onto West Exec that morning, and Mr. Cipollone said something to the effect of, please make sure we don't go up to the Capitol, Cassidy. Keep in touch with me. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable if we make that movement happen.
And do you remember which crimes Mr. Cipollone was concerned with?
In the days leading up to the 6th, we had conversations about potentially obstructing justice or defrauding the electoral count.
It's amazing. We're going to get charged with every crime imaginable. It's truly mind-boggling to me that none of these guys are in jail yet when they themselves were expecting to end up in jail. Merrick Garland's still poring over transcripts looking for a smoking gun. Meanwhile, on January 6th, Trump aides were all on Pinterest searching for ways to accessorize your orange jumpsuit. Oh, cool. It says you can bedazzle your handcuffs. And crucially, that comment from Cipollone was not just a one-time freakout on January 6th. As Hutchinson made clear in that clip, there were conversations even before January 6th about the likelihood that Trump aides were committing, among other crimes, obstruction of justice or defrauding the electoral count. Think about that. They even named the specific laws they were breaking. They literally laid out a blueprint for prosecutors to arrest them. I mean, how much easier can you make it? This is like if on every page Waldo was holding up a giant sign that said, "I'm right here, you idiot." And that was not the only time a White House lawyer warned Trump cronies that they were breaking the law. For example, there was also Eric Hirschman, whose job, it seems like, was basically to tell everyone in the Trump White House they were constantly breaking the law. Now, you might remember Hirschman from previous hearings as the guy who has a baseball bat with the word justice written on it hanging on his wall. I like that it's not mounted on wood or in a glass case or anything. It's just right there on hooks at grabbing height. I'll bet when people got their lunches out of the office fridge at his firm, they triple-checked they had the bag right. Hirschman was in a meeting with another key figure in the attempted coup, Justice Department official Jeffrey Clark. Clark wanted Trump to make him Attorney General after the election so that as Attorney General, Clark could declare without evidence that there was fraud in the election and then overturn the results. And Hirschman had very blunt words for Clark when he found out about Clark's plan.
When he finished discussing what he planned on doing, I said, good, a-hole. Congratulations, you just admitted a first step in your act you take as Attorney General would be committing a felony.
I like that the guy has enough decorum not to curse in a deposition, but still keeps a baseball bat in the frame just to keep everyone on edge. I wish it could have been a fly on the wall for all his conversations in the White House. If you break the law, I'm going to use this baseball bat and beat the living out of you. Sorry, the living F out of you, please. Please excuse my horrible manners, you dumb piece of. So yet again, we have a Trump White House official making it plain as day that the people planning the coup knew they were breaking the law when they were doing it. For example, we also know from testimony given by a former aide to Mike Pence that John Eastman, the pro-coup lawyer who wrote the memo detailing how Pence was supposed to overturn the results on January 6th, also knew his plan was illegal. Eastman admitted in the Oval Office in front of Trump that his plan would violate the Electoral Count Act. And after the whole thing descended into violence and chaos on the 6th, Hirschman, the baseball bat guy, again offered a very stark warning to Eastman.
It was the day after. Eastman, I don't remember why he called me, or he texted me or called me, wanted to talk with me, and he said he couldn't reach others. And he started to ask me about something dealing with Georgia and preserving something potentially for appeal. And I said to him, are you out of your effing mind? Right? I said, I only want to hear two words coming out of your mouth from now on. Orderly transition. And I screamed, I said, I don't want to hear any other effing words coming out of your mouth, no matter what, other than orderly transition. Repeat those words to me. And I screamed, eventually he said, orderly transition. I said, good, John. Now I'm going to give you the best free legal advice you're ever getting in your life. Get a great effing criminal defense lawyer. You're going to need it. And then I hung up on him.
Man, where did this guy get his law degree? Does Yale Law School have a building on campus called the Polly Walnuts Memorial Law Library? The only problem with that library, it's great, but as soon as you learn something there, you forget about it. And as we've also discovered from these hearings, Trump's cronies had such a clear consciousness of guilt that a lot of them were asking for preemptive pardons. They knew they could be prosecuted, and they wanted Trump to get them off the hook before that happened.
Were you involved in, or did you witness any conversations about the possibility of a blanket pardon for everyone involved in January 6th?
I had heard that mentioned, yeah.
Dr. Eastman emailed Rudy Giuliani and requested that he be included on a list of potential recipients of a presidential pardon.
And are you aware of any members of Congress seeking pardons?
I guess Mr. Gates and Mr. Brooks, Mr. Gates was personally pushing for a pardon, and he was doing so since early December.
Did Rudy Giuliani ever suggest that he was interested in receiving a presidential pardon related to January 6th?
He did.
Ms. Hutchison, did White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows ever indicate that he was interested in receiving a presidential pardon related to January 6th?
Mr. Meadows did seek that pardon. Yes, ma'am.
How do you know that Congressman Gates asked for a pardon?
He told me.
Tell us about that.
He told me to ask Meadows for a pardon.
At this point, it's easier to ask who wasn't looking for a pardon. Mr. President, here's a list of the people who want pardons. Mark Meadows, Rudy Giuliani, Matt Gaetz, John Eastman, the White House chef, the janitor, and that kid who mowed the lawn. Do you remember him? Yeah, he needs a pardon. I guess he maybe stole that lawnmower. I also love the fact that Matt Gaetz was just going around telling people he asked for a pardon like it was cool and not incriminating. Although Gaetz does seem like a guy who doesn't know what he says makes him look bad. Hey, Jeff was saying cold water makes his ween look small, but I was like, dude, mine looks small no matter what temperature the water is. Am I right? Am I right? Hirschman, am I right? Shut the up. Shut the F up. These hearings have sent a clear message to prosecutors in the Justice Department. Not only is there sufficient evidence to charge Trump and his cronies with multiple crimes, there's also sufficient evidence that they were aware they were potentially committing crimes at the time that they were orchestrating the attempted coup. If you are, say, a Republican or Trump supporter watching these hearings and you come to the conclusion that everything these guys did was legal and above board, then I'm sorry, you're a...
Excuse me, sorry, effing a-hole.
This has been A Closer Look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, get vaccinated. We love you.